Hello everyone, this is Xing and I am a consultant in warehousing and inventory management. The reason why I made this video is that I'm asked by my boss to deliver a step-by-step training about the K-curve methodology to my clients. So this is the Excel sheet I will be using for the demonstration. In this Excel sheet, I will be showing how to make the K-curve use 200 parts. It has been understood for a long time that parameter maintenance is one of the key factors in the successful operation of MRP system. Use the tools like EOQ and the K-curve. First, what is K-curve? What is K exactly? K is a combination of the variables 2C over I, where the 2C over I it came from the EOQ formula. It is a variable of cost of ordering and inventory holding rate. These two are our assumptions during our calculation. The second part is why do we use K-curve? Because as we mentioned before, there are limitations in the tools such as EOQ and parallel methods. For parallel methods, only 3 groups are used. The ABC classes. For a more complex object, 3 groups does not provide a comprehensive view. That's why we need to use a K-curve. How do we use K-curve? Well, watch this video and follow this Excel. Just kidding. In step 1, step 2, and step 3, we can finish the K-curve. Stage 1 is the expressing of the EOQ as an economic period, where stage 2 is the building a bridge between Pareto and economic order period, which is the EOP, and the stage 3 is the variation of K-curve to create the curve. How do we do that? Is via 3 stages, where the stage 1 is to expressing the EOQ as an economic period, where stage 2 is building a bridge between the Pareto and economic order of period, which is the EOP, and stage 3 is the variation of K-curve. Now here, let's see the K-curve. The K-curve looks like this, with the points of K being lying on the line, where we need the K value, number of orders, and average inventory to construct this K-curve. Now, let's look at the next sheet is the formula sheet. This page includes all of the formulas we used in this tutorial. The photo on the left shows the EOQ, EOP, average inventory, and the right is the middle point of the classes of the K-curve. Now, let's look at the data sheet. This is the sample data of 200 parts I used with a constant K of 30 and working days of 250. This 200 parts is I used as a sample for this tutorial, where we need annual spend value and also the EOQ, as we mentioned before, and the EOP, because K-curve is based on the EOQ and Pareto method. For the annual spend value, it is equal to the demand times the unit cost, as we can see here. As we get the value, we need to calculate this for all 200 parts. By double-clicking, we can drag down the formula. Let's just copy this here. For the EOQ, how do we calculate EOQ? The simplified EOQ is the formula equals to square root of the K, where is the constant. We need to keep it. Just by pressing F4, we can keep the block. Then times D, the demand, divided by P, the unit cost. By doing this, we get our EOQ, and we need it for 200 parts. For EOP, how do we calculate EOP? The formula is on the right as well. For the EOP, it equals to W times square root K over A equals to square root, we just key in the formula, constant K divided by annual spend, A. Also to be mentioned that we need the EOP in days, so we need to times the working days. Yes, then we got our EOP for 200 parts. This step is pretty simple as we just need the EOP and EOQ. Okay, now we need to arrange this table. Just selecting everything here, and then we need to sort this table out according to the annual spend in a decreased order. How do we do that? We just need to go to sort and filter. Okay, now as we can see that the table is arranged in the way that annual spend value is in the decreasing order. Now just click everything. We need to copy this page on the next step, where we create a new tab and name it as value class. So we need to calculate the value class just like ABC analysis, but it's a bit different class from here. After we copy this page onto the value class page, we need to create some lines for the spaces where we put our value classes. Yeah, let's just create some lines. Okay, for value class, of course we need the value class line and also cycle days, for which class we need how many days of the cycle days, and also the class limitation, just like the ABC analysis. How do we identify the class? Value class, we just simply say it's like 1 to 6, and cycle days, it depends on every person, but in a multiple of 5 days. As we talk to our supplier, we need to say we need 1 week or 2 weeks of the supply. Otherwise, they don't know how many days they are sending the supply for. But cycle days is totally personal, so everyone can define your own cycle days in the multiple of 5. Class limit. How do we find the class limit? Is to use this midpoint. Let's just copy it here, the midpoint formula. Okay, now we got the formula, we got the class days and value class. It's the calculation part of the midpoint. We find the limit. How do we find the limit? It's here. If the cycle days is equal to 0, the cycle days of the next class is equal to 0, then it doesn't have any value. Why? Let's see. We need to input this formula into the Excel sheet, where W working days and square working days square times the constant K and divided by the upper class limit and the lower class limit. The cycle day for 5 days and the cycle days for 10 days. Now, here is our class limit. We can just drag it down for calculating all the cycle. So, what do we need to calculate instead of once we got the class limits? We need to calculate the cycle days and class limits for each of the parts. We just create a new one and call it cycle days. Then now we can calculate just by copying this onto the new sheet. Let's create a column called value class. And another column for cycle days. How do we do value class? From 1 to 6, we need to do according to the annual spend value. So if the annual spend value is larger than the limit, so the annual spend value, let's click on it, larger than the class limit, which means it's that class, it's in that class. It's very easy to understand. What if it's not? Then we go to the next class, which means it's not class 1. If it's over the class 2 limit, it's class 2. After that, we just need to simply repeat this step for all of the class limits and value classes, just to check which class this annual spend value is belong to. Okay, let's keep doing it. Over the class 4. And if it's over class 5. One point to be mentioned that during this keying the cells, we need to make sure the value class and class limits are fixed. So by pressing F4 key, this is to ensure that when we drag down the formula, the cell doesn't move. We just need to keep the annual spend value moving. Okay, now, as we see here, we already create a value class for every part. How do we define the cycle days? It just simply compare the value class to the value class there. If it's 1, like if the value class of this part is equal to the value class table, so the cycle day is 5. It's the corresponding cycle days of class 1. If not, then compare with the next value class. And the cycle day will be the next value class cycle day, which is 10 here. We're just repeating this step until all the comparisons are done, which is from value class 1 to value class 6. And also don't forget to lock the cell in the value class table. Okay. If that is equal to value class 5, then the cycle day is actually 80. If not, then check if it's equal to value class 6. If it is, then it's cycle day 160. If not, then it's class 7. But it doesn't exist. Just for the completion of the formula, we type in 0. It doesn't exist. We just can type in a random number, which I put 0 in this case. Okay, let's just put brackets. Okay, now cycle days is being calculated and applied to all 200 parts. Let's just scroll down, have a look if it's correct. Yeah, it's in the increasing order, which means the formula is correct. Okay, now it's time to create another tab, which is the key part of this methodology, is the K. Let's just call this sheet K equals to 1. Copy this page and then paste it here. Okay, K value is determined by yourself as well. So for K equals to 1, we need to calculate the number of orders. Okay, number of orders and average inventory level. The average inventory, as we mentioned earlier, we need these two to construct the K curve. Now we make the K equals to 1. How do we calculate these two? Number of orders, here we have the total working days, right? The total working days divided by cycle days. How many cycles in the year? That means the number of orders. And average inventory. How do we understand this concept? We don't need a formula here. Average inventory for each cycle, how do we calculate it? It's equal to the annual spend value, yeah, divided by working days, which means the daily spend value, right? Annual spend value divided by working days is the daily spend value. And times the EOP of the cycle days. EOP is not the cycle days we use, so we use our cycle days times the cycle days. This will give inventory for the average inventory level. Okay, now we need to calculate a total of the inventory. Total annual spending. We just need to sum this column up. Yeah, annual spend value. Okay, we got a sum. We don't need this, it's already created by the Excel. Just delete it. Now we got this, we still need, what do we need to construct K curve? The number of orders and the average inventory. So same thing, sum of, sorry, it's not E, it's J. The J column. Okay, just have a check if it's actually the 15th row. Oh, 16th. Yeah, 16th of J. And same thing, just drag it to calculate the sum of average inventory. This is for K equals to 1. To construct a curve, we need several points. So we need to determine more K values and their average inventory and order number. So we say K equals 5, K equals to 10, and K equals to 20. Okay, K equals to 30. Yeah, K equals to 50, 40. Here, K equals to 60. K equals to 80. And let's create K equals to 100 as well. The more points you choose, the more smooth your curve will be. Okay. Let's just copy this page of k equals to 1, which we completed. Copy it here. Change the k value, then everything else is changed. Okay, we just keep copying. Let's change the k value. 5. Constant k equals to 5. K equals to 10. K equals to 20. K equals to 30. K equals to 40. K equals to 60. K equals to 80. And k equals to 100. Okay, now we got everything that we need to construct a k-curve. Let's create a sheet for constructing k-curve. Just call it k-curve. For constructing the k-curve, as we mentioned several times, we need the k, we need the number of orders, and also we need the average inventory. Okay, just make it fit. K value we use is 1, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 80, and 100. Just type it in. Okay, number of orders, we calculated in each tabs as well. Let's go to k equals to 1. Number of orders is, scroll down. Yeah, just click this cell. Average inventory, same thing, go to k equals to 1, that's the cell. We do the same thing for each of the k value. Put all the value into one table, then we can actually use it for constructing a curve. One thing to be mentioned that for the curve here, if you are using the different cycle days as I used, your number will be a little bit different, as if you have a lot of cycle days and classes, that means you will have more of the order numbers and more of the data sets. Okay, let's just put in every value. Sorry, this takes a bit time because we need to search for the value. Yeah, k equals to 60. Let's go down. The number of orders. Yep. And average inventory. 60. Yep. Okay, 80. Scroll down. And average inventory. Let's go to 80 as well. Okay. 100. The last one, 100. Number of orders, scroll down. Yeah, number of orders. And average inventory. Same thing. Okay, finally, we got all the data for our curve. Let's just format these cells. Too many decimal points. I can't handle it. Okay, here we can insert the graph. We can select data of the graph. Okay, let's say it's K-curve. Select all these points. Yeah, this column and this column. And this. Okay. Now here is the K-curve. We can see the K-curve is already appeared. It's in the same shape as, let's go back to the previous slides and the final results example. Exactly the same shape, which means our calculation is actually correct. If you want, you can add some K values on the curve as well. So just to sum up this tutorial, why do we actually use a K-curve? As we see that when we use a K-curve, we actually use the EOQ method and also the Pareto concepts, which is the classes of the values. Because Pareto concept is not so widely challenged and it's intensively used as a rough guide, but the K-curve has a stronger and more accurate predict. Secondly, a critical examination of EOQ and its more popular derivative summarize the arguments that are well documented. The key weakness of EOQ is that often the data required for accurate evaluation of the elements of EOQ are not typically always available in the business, such as the order cost during the year might not always be the same. It's a variable, but if we use EOQ method, we set it as a fixed value. But however, it is not the case in the reality. So, where K-curve is the best methodology to use for inventory and warehousing management. The K-curve is first identified in the 1990s, which is derived by combining the two techniques, as we mentioned earlier, the Pareto and EOQ. We used both methods in our K-curve methodology as well. It shows that it successfully eliminates the weaknesses and enhances the strengths of both Pareto and EOQ. We take both methods' good parts and take away the bad parts. This Excel just shows how the K-curve methodology has been successfully applied as a business management tool, and this can be used to determine an optimal parameter setting for individual items. So for each part, you can actually look at this K-curve here. When in the practice, your boss asks you to reduce the inventory level. So you can go to the K-curve table and see, what's my average inventory level? If I want to reduce the average inventory level, let's say from 80K to 30K, I need to have increased my order number from 1,800 to 7,000. This is simply just ask your warehouse manager if they can actually handle that huge amount of order handling in the warehouse in one day. So the complex question of reducing the average inventory level can be transferred to a simple question of how many orders I need to handle. This is the method of K-curve.